Hey everybody, how are you doing? Welcome to the Yarn Thing podcast by Marley Bird. I'm your host, Marley Bird. You can catch the Yarn Thing podcast live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. That's 12 o'clock on the East Coast, 9 o'clock on the West Coast, and 11 o'clock in the Midwest. If you are anywhere else in the world and would like to join us live for the broadcast, please Google what time 10 o'clock Mountain Time is for you. I do live in Denver, Colorado, if that helps. And you can come and join the fun live. If you are not able to watch live, don't worry. The show is archived right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel, which leads me to the other way that you can make sure that you can catch the show or any other videos that I tend to put out on this channel. Make sure you've hit subscribe. Hit that bell button. You'll be notified when I release a video or when I go live. And that's one of the surefire ways to make sure that you get all of these really great content videos, whether it's with the Yarn Thing podcast or the unboxings I do with Caitlin or the instructional videos for knitting and crochet and jewelry and just general crafts. Lots of wonderful things happening over here on the channel. At least I think so. I think so yeah, we're going to say thank you to the Yarn Thing podcast sponsors because many of them have been with me since the beginning, like so long. And I really appreciate them. And I hope that all of you will take the time to go and check out some of their websites and maybe just poke around a little bit, see if there's something there you like. So we'll say thank you to xrx.events. That's knitters universe.com if you go there as well. That is the host of the Stitches events that I teach at around the country. There are 5 events, I think, right now. The next one will be in Santa Clara, California in February. I will not be teaching at that one, but I will have a booth there with Red Heart, with my yarn and some of the other wonderful new yarns that Red Heart has put out. So thank you to XRX and Stitches events. We're also going to say thank you to Erin Lane Bags. Lindsay Martin is one of my best friends, as you guys know, and she has put together some wonderful products, and she designs her own fabric for these bags geared towards knitters and crocheters and crafters. So if you are still looking for that last minute gift, I don't know if I should check with her to see if you can still get a gift here at the holidays sent in time, but you might. I'm not real sure, but you might check it out. ErinLaneBags.com. There's also Buffalo Wool Company. I know that they have cut off their Christmas shipping right now, but there are so many wonderful things from Buffalo Wool Company. As you guys know, they were on the podcast here recently talking about some of the wonderful items they have and the work of the Buffalo Wool Company. If you did not get a chance to check out that show, you really should. It's very fascinating. Ron and Teresa are fantastic people, and they really do an excellent job over there at the Buffalo Wool Company. We also have Creative Bug, and you guys know that once a month I travel to Creative Bug and I do a live Facebook event with them. It has been such a treat to be able to do that this past year. I don't know if that's going to continue on into next year yet. I will find out hopefully in January. But we love the Creative Bug people. They really feel like I'm family over there. Like it's really great. So I love that they are supporting the Yarn Thing podcast, and they are owned by Joanne. So sort of this like one step removed. I'm sponsored by Joann's, huh? Can I just throw that out there? Joanne. Yeah, right. Just make that happen. Let's see here. I think the last but not least that I need to make sure I mention is Red Heart Yarns, where I am the proud national spokesperson. It's the home of Chic Sheep Yarn by Marley Bird and so many other wonderful yarns. It is America's #1 rated yarn from all across all the different yarns. It's voted from the Women's Choice Awards, and it deserves it. So they're a wonderful company. I love working with them. And there you have it. Those are the sponsors. Hopefully you will get a chance to go check them out. I have put links to all of their websites on my own website. If you go to marleybird.com, click on the Yarn Thing podcast menu, you'll see where it says sponsors. Click on that and you'll see all of their links. Okay, so all of that, geez, what was that, like 5 minutes? Sorry, but I had to get that all out there, right? We have a wonderful guest here with us today. And if you know, a couple weeks ago, we had Marie here and we had some technical difficulties with the internet. Like things just weren't jiving. And so we both were just like, you know what? We're stepping away. We'll re-collaborate and do this again later. So here we are later. We have Marie Segares from the Underground Crafter on the podcast today. And we are going to talk to her about becoming a or making this craft your career, designing, whether it's knitting or crochet. How do you turn that into a career? How do you do the online marketing? How do you teach crochet and knitting and make this work? How do you do these things? Many of you, as you are wrapping up this year, maybe you decided this year you were going to make some extra items on the side for the holiday gifts for other people. So people paid you to make items for them. And you're thinking, you know what, this isn't so bad. I kind of like this. How would I go into making this a career? This is a great podcast for you. Some of you have already made this a career, and you're in the middle of your year-long planning for next year, since we're at the end of December when this broadcast comes out. This is a great time for you to get some hints and tips and tricks. I've been in the business since 2007. So I've been doing this quite a long time. I've had many different roles in the industry itself. Marie has been doing this just about as long, I think, and it's, if not longer. She is a tried and true professional. She's literally a professor, people. She's so good. So you really want to listen to what she has to say. So I'm going to shut up now, which I know some of the video people are like, thank God, it's about time. And I'm going to let Marie talk. So, hey, Marie.
Hey, how are you, Marley?
I am good. Let's hope that everything goes well today with the podcast.
Yeah, I have my fingers crossed.
I know.
Double fingers crossed.
I know. So for people who might not know much about you, let's give them the rundown of, real quickly, you know, who are you? What are your qualifications? And, you know, why they should listen to you.
Sure. Oh, wow. That's pressure. Anyway. So as Marley said, I blog over at undergroundcrafter.com, and I'm a crochet and knitting designer, crafts blogger. I teach a lot locally and as well as regionally in terms of crochet and knitting. I do some sewing, quilting, all kinds of crafts. I'm super crafty. But as she also mentioned, in my real day job, I am actually a college professor. I teach business classes, mostly in marketing and entrepreneurship. I'm a second generation entrepreneur. So my mom owns her own business as well. And so I think, Marley, you know, we have that in common, that,
Yes.
that family, that entrepreneurial spirit that gets passed down in the family. And I started designing patterns. Well, I started teaching crochet in 2007. I went through the Craft Yarn Council's certification program. For those of you that haven't heard of it, that's kind of like a trade organization for different yarn companies. And they do a training program for crochet and knitting teachers and instructors. Basically, you go through their program. You can do it in person, which is what I did, or you can do it as a correspondence course. And once you kind of pass through that program, then you do 30 hours of teaching, and then you get certified. And you know, the main reason the program exists is so a place like Michael's or Joann's could find a teacher that they feel is qualified.
Joann's is a sponsor. Did I tell you that? Like, kind of vicariously.
I hope
I don't get in trouble for saying that. Like, they just own Creative Bug. Creative Bug is the sponsor.
Yeah. I don't want you getting in trouble, Marley.
I know, right? I know.
I disavow any knowledge of whatever got us in trouble. Plausible deniability. Anyway,
Yes.
Yeah, so I started with the teaching, actually. And then what happened is, as I was teaching, my students would be like, oh, I want to learn how to make whatever, some specific project. And I would design something, you know, a pattern that fit with that. And that would kind of go with teaching them to read patterns and everything. So I found myself, you know, becoming a designer. And then at that time, I was a member of the Crochet Guild of America. I still am, by the way. But I went into their mentoring program. Just a plug for the CGOA. They have a free mentoring program for aspiring professionals. So I was placed with another designer, and she kind of helped me, walk me through the process of actually, how do you submit your design to a magazine? How do you get published? And so I think
who was your mentor?
Mary Nolfi. I've never met her in real life. I've only computer met her.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't even know who she is. That's interesting, though.
Published a couple of books, and she has like a ton of magazine publications, and she was super, super helpful. At that time, she doesn't have her website anymore, but at that time, her website even had a section to help other designers, you know, how do you
Nice.
Design and things like that. So she was extremely helpful, and I think it was 2009 that I published my first pattern. I don't remember if that's when it came out or that's when I sent them the sample, because as you know, Marley, sometimes it could be a long time.
Yes.
That it actually gets published. So somewhere around then is when I started designing. And then I also, like you said, I went through the, making projects for family members and people buying stuff that I made. And I've done, a lot of different aspects of the business, but mostly what I do now in terms of, making money is from designing and a little bit of teaching here and there.
All right. I love that. That's a lot. It's a lot on your plate.
It is a lot. And then the whole job thing, it's on the side.
It's a lot of work. So as you became a designer and you had this mentor, like first off, I'm super jealous you had a mentor, like an official mentor. Like I was lucky because when I came in, that's the same time that some other crochet designers came into the business, and I met them at TNNA and we became friends. And so we all kind of mentored and helped each other. So like Robin Chichula and Ellen Gormley and Rebecca Velasquez and Drew Borski and Kristen Omdahl, like we all kind of helped each other move our way up, right? Because for whatever reason, going through the CYC or anything else just wasn't really, I mean, I guess Drew did. Drew went through the CGOA designer program because Melissa Leitman was his mentor. I mean, come on, kid, how cool is that? But anyways, that's where I got a lot of my guidance and help. And then through the years, I know that there have been a lot of things that I learned, not only on the design side, but when I became the creative director for Bijou Basin Ranch Yarn, I got to look at the entire like submission process from a completely different perspective. And I learned so much doing that I then began teaching classes to teach other people who were submitting patterns or, how to go through the process. And I felt like I was so much more well-informed because I had it from two different perspectives. So you have taken what you know and you've written books about it. So let's start with your first one and kind of how it came about. And let's just begin there.
Sure. So I used to have a podcast. It was called the Creative Yarn Entrepreneur Show. It's still available online if people want to listen. It was basically business advice for yarn industry folks. And it was a mix of kind of solo shows and guest shows similar to this one. And at some point in 2016, it started getting harder and harder to actually find the time to record and get the show out and editing and all of that. And I know you know what I'm talking about here, Marley.
Like, yes. That's why this show is live, because if I had to edit, it would never be published.
Yeah. So I started saying, okay, I'm going to probably have to phase out the podcast at some point. And I had a series of blog posts that were about teaching, getting started as a teacher locally. So not necessarily for the big events like Stitches, but, teaching at your local yarn shop or wherever else locally. And so I started updating those posts, and I was initially thinking it would be just a really small thing, but you know me, once I get started, I have to go all in. So next year now I have a 110-page book. So I was like, okay, this is a real book. So my first book was Crochet, Launch Your Business, Increase Your Side Income, and Reach More Students. And basically, it just kind of walks people that want to teach crochet, although it's 99% of it is also relevant for knitting. How do you get started? What kind of students do you want to work with? Where do you teach? Is it because it's not only yarn shops, like where are all the different places you can go? Should you organize your own classes? Should you work with an established venue? How do you price your classes? How do you collect money? Do you want to do cash only, credit cards, all that kind of stuff? So it goes through all that. And then also about marketing, how to, tell people about the classes so they'll actually show up. And when I finished that book, I did kind of a blog tour. So I visited other people's blogs and did guest posts and talked a little bit about it. And, I've gotten really good feedback on it. And, I've been teaching for a long time. So, I know a lot about it. And also, in sort of a hard market. I mean, on the one side, when you work in New York City, it's a plus because people pay more here than they will in other places. On the other hand, there's a lot of competition. So probably more than most people have wherever they are locally. So that's why I have all kinds of different ideas about, how to deal with competitors and make your own stuff stand out a little bit more.
Perfect.
And
I'm going to have you pause there for a second because there is a question, and if I don't ask, I'll forget. This comes from Moose Gal, and so I'm gonna tweak her question a little bit. I'll tell you what her exact question is first. Is what do you tell somebody who asks you to make something, but they want to pay dirt cheap? So I'm going to tweak that and say, not only if somebody asks you to make something and they don't really want to pay that much, they don't see a value in it, but teaching as well, because there are so many people who will say, hey, so-and-so knows how to teach. They'll come and teach I'm just going to say Girl Scout group, what I mean? Like, but people don't see the value, but there's money there. It's like, this is my time. So how would you answer her?
Yeah. So personally, when people say they want me to do something for dirt cheap, I just say no. I mean, that's me, because my time has value. I have a lot going on in my life. And, if you want to pay 10 cents for a hat, go to Walmart and buy a hat there. Why do you need me to make it and lose money on it? So that's, I think a lot of makers are very generous people, and it's really hard for us to say no, especially to someone we like, or a friend or a family member. So I want to just authorize you all. You have my permission. You may say no. Start with the no. But if you really want the chance to make something for them and earn money, I would just, kind of start with, I got a really good tip a long time ago, and I honestly don't remember who told me, but it's so helpful. They said, when you price it, imagine that you got an order for 200. Are you still happy about that price? So a lot of times we say, oh, well, I'll charge 20 bucks for this because, I'd like making a hat anyway, and it's no big deal. And it's okay that I didn't make that much on it. But imagine the person came back and said, I love these hats. Can you make me 200? Would you still feel like $20 was enough, or would you be, mad after the first 3? So if you feel like you could still make money, still be happy, still be worth your time at the price if you had an order for 200, then I think that's the price. And, honestly, you're going to price some people out and you may not get the business. But then again, you have the time to do other things that could make money or that are more pleasurable to you or what have you. So, that's kind of my advice with both for the class and so if teaching a class for $10 an hour, if you don't mind, if you were doing that full time and that's plenty, then go for it. But if you feel like, you know what, I should be getting more than minimum wage for this because I'm bringing my years of expertise, I'm a very professional in how I teach, I give something to my students that can last a lifetime, that can save them money, then think again about how much you'd be willing to charge for it.
That's good. I'm going to mention something in here too, because it's something that I've noticed recently, and it's something that a lot of people don't really talk about. So I'm just going to throw it out there, and hopefully I'm not going to blackball myself on anything. But, there are different events, there's like a Stitches events. There's cruise events. There are like traveling to Ireland events. There's things like that. These events are pricey, but I want you guys to know that if the event is not being run by the actual designer, okay, then there's usually a third party involved in doing these events. When a third party is involved, I'm just going to talk about the third party. I don't want to talk about designers because they tend to treat themselves pretty good. Right? Designers are usually pretty good to other designers. It's just the way it is. Like I would absolutely go on a cruise with Mikey. I would absolutely go on a cruise with Melissa. I would absolutely do any of that stuff. Do you know what I mean? I'm just picking on cruises because I know that they do those. But if a third party event organizer is putting something together, and I'm not talking about Stitches, just so that we're clear here, I'm not talking about them. They treat their people well. One of the things that I think a lot of people misconstrue is they're like, oh, but you're only teaching for those 3 hours in the whole day. And then you get to spend the rest of the time on this really great cruise ship and you get to do this, this, and this. So why do you need to get paid so much money? It's like, first off, it's not just the 3 hours. When you're there as a designer, you're on the entire time. Because if I'm not in that classroom and you see me on the cruise ship, you're going to come and hang out.
And you can't be like, I'm on cruise time. Get out. You know, you
Exactly.
can't do
Yeah,
that.
you're not going to be mean. It's not that I don't want to talk to you, but I'm just saying it's not as easy as what it might sound like. Oh, you're only teaching for those 3 hours. That's not it. You're actually on. You're exhausted. You ever left the end of hosting a party or something? You're tired. So there's that aspect. And the fact that you're on a cruise ship, it doesn't matter if you're on a cruise ship or if you're in a motel in the middle of Kansas. You're still away from your office. You're still at an event. You just happen to be in a prettier location that's a little bit more expensive, but it's still time away. So with all of that together, when an event planner puts stuff together, if they have assumed that your room and board should be part of your pay in the sense that, oh, but you're getting this great vacation. No, don't do it. And I'm speaking from experience. I'll just throw that out there. Don't do it. Don't do it. You don't make anything, and it's not worth your time. It's not worth anything of it. So those of you who are going on different events and stuff, if you are concerned at all, if your teachers are getting paid, ask the event organizer. Just ask, say, hey, if I take this class, what portion of this is going to the teacher? Or if I go on this, if I go on this excursion and, you can ask these questions, just make sure that you are also supporting the teachers. It's just a whole nother way you can do that. And so I will get off my soapbox. It's just one of those things that nobody talks about it. Nobody really talks about it. And so, and if you don't talk about it, you don't know. Like the people who have experienced it know. And if somebody were to come and ask me at a party privately, I would tell them. But I'm putting it out there. It's not all it's cracked up to be. And again, I'm not talking about Stitches. I'm not talking about the designers who are running their own events and stuff. I'm just saying that sometimes even just one step removed, you can make it so that way a teacher or a designer or whoever isn't even really getting paid minimum wage. Like it's crazy. So that's it. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing is that a lot of times, especially I think with knitting too, but I think a little bit more with crocheting because, with knitting, there's some more examples of it being done by a machine. So we can look at prices and stuff. People just don't really think about their time. Like the time that you use to make something is time you can't be doing something else, that could also make money, or that could also be, yes, you could crochet while your kids are there, but you're not playing with them to the full extent as if you put your crochet down, and also you can crochet and do something else, but you just can't invest as much in it. And like you said, you're away from your family, which has a certain significance, but also you could be working that whole time and earning other money. So you have to think about the lost income too. Yeah. So it's a lot of things to keep in mind. I know people love these formulas, it's tell them the hat should be, 3 times the supplies plus, an hour and whatever. But I think honestly, the best thing I said is that what the other person told me. If you'll still be happy if you had to make 200, then it's a good price. If you feel like after that you'd be angry, then the price is too low.
Yeah. There's another question from Llama Grandmama.
Oh, I love that.
Llama Grandmama. It says, do you recommend that a potential crochet or knit teacher becomes a member of the Crochet Guild of America or the equivalent for knitters, or other organizations while they are starting? Yes is my answer. So
yeah, I was going to say yes too. I think it's really important, if you just think of it like any other career or profession, you want to be part of the professional association. So just like if you think about a teacher who's really good, that probably your kids went to school and had this great teacher, this person is not just living in a bubble. They're part of, probably the National Education Association, or, they go to conferences to learn how to be a better teacher, or they read articles about how to be a better teacher. And it's the same thing if you're teaching crochet. You want to be part of a professional community. And like Marley and I mentioned, I mean, with the Crochet Guild of America, they literally have free mentoring. And I'm a mentor, and I haven't been matched with a mentee for multiple years because people don't take advantage of it. And it's crazy. There's professionals out there with tons of experience that are willing to give you one-on-one mentoring for free. And people are like, nah, I'm good. I'll just read some things on Facebook and hopefully figure it out, you know?
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, join the associations. You know, the memberships are not so expensive. If after a year you feel like you're not getting enough out of it, you know, don't join again the next year. But I think being part of the professional community is really important. And the Crochet Guild of America or the Knitting Guild Association, they're all you know, really important organizations, and they have groups for professionals that might not be part of the regular membership. So if you are thinking of teaching or designing, or you're a professional maker, you know, you sell your stuff regularly, you have a business ID, those are the kind of, you know, extra memberships that you want to be a part of.
Yeah. And that goes well too with tech editors, or what
Absolutely.
about sample
Absolutely.
crocheters and knitters?
Yes.
Chris Lopez is asking, if you're just a hobbyist, do you recommend joining these organizations? And Chris, I would say yes. Like if if it's something that you're passionate about and you really love, then yeah, support the organization that helps support other designers and stuff that you love as well. But beyond that, if you happen
get
to
discounts,
yeah, you get discounts. But if you go to like the national conference, it's so much fun, Chris, because you're with, okay, let's talk about just the Crochet Guild of America, because, you know, when I'm at knitting events and stuff, and I say knitting events, when I'm at Stitches, there are crocheters there. But when I'm at CGOA, it is all crocheters. And then like, I'm never at a place where it's just like that. And it's just
hundreds too. Not like 3 that you met in your local. Yeah. It's like a different experience when you're in a place with so many people that have the same interest as you, and they're so excited, you know, and they can relate to what you're talking about in a way that probably most likely most of your family is like, shut up about the yarn already, you know. So you know, it's a different experience. And then, you know, for hobbyists, they have discounts, a lot of discounts to different places that you can get from being a member. So that's a plus. So there's a lot of benefits, because I know people who say, well, what if I can't go to the show? Should I still join? Because I personally have never been to the Crochet Guild of America conferences in the almost 10 years that I've been a member. But I still get a lot out of it. And I know that other people that are not designers also get a lot out of it in terms of the discounts and connections with other crocheters and all those things.
Yeah, I think it's great. There's another question here regarding selling stuff and stuff. There's a lot of questions. A lot of people are happy about this.
Woo!
This is KB Fibers Podcast. It says, I've had the problem of not being paid with yarn, or I've had a problem of being paid with yarn, not cash, and not just from yarn companies, but also with designers. And then she said, can you mentor her, please? So I think her question there is, you know, so if you want to move past the idea of, oh, you're just getting something in exchange for yarn, how do you go about doing that? I know what my answer would be, but I'm going to let you answer first.
Sure. So I think, you know, you have to communicate what it is that you expect. So, you know, you can't assume what the other person is thinking. So if you go in and somebody says, hey, can you design this for me in my yarn? And you don't say, yes, that costs X dollars to do. And I need it via PayPal, you know, how at whatever schedule, then they assume whatever they assume, right? Which is I pay you with yarn or whatever it is. So you have to communicate upfront. And I think, again, it goes back to the saying no, right? And every time you have to decide, does this opportunity make sense for me at this time, right? Yeah. So even though I obviously also get paid for designs, I also do design things in exchange for yarn, because when I design it on my own website and I'm making all the money from advertising, it's cheaper for me than buying yarn. So why not save however much dollars in yarn? But that's for me, right? Yeah. But then there's other times where I'm a freelancer, right? If I have my magazine, it goes into a magazine, I'm probably not going to say, oh, just send me some yarn and we're good. I'll probably say, yeah, but hold on, I'm sending you the sample, so I'm spending money. I have to do it on your schedule, not whenever I feel like it. And all these other various things, well, this is going to cost such and such amount, you know? Right. And I think, again, it's like, really thinking through and then communicating and being okay if the other person says no, right? Because the yarn company might say, oh, we're a small yarn company. We only pay people in yarn. This yarn's expensive to us. This is our business. You don't, we can't pay you more. And then it's okay to say, oh, okay, that's fine. We can't work together right now, but it's great knowing you. But you kind of have to be prepared to walk away if it doesn't work out. And what happens is I think a lot of people they just keep saying yes and yes. And it's like what I said with the 200 hats. After hat number 72, they start to get angry about whatever deal that they cut on hat 1. And every single time you make a design, it's a new chance to say, this is what I think makes sense right here. Unless you have like a long-term contract for X number of patterns, but most people don't have that starting out. So just explain, it's been really great working with you, but at this point this is what I need, and if they can't do it, move on to the next thing.
Yep. I know that when I first started, I had a couple companies that I worked with in just exchange for yarn. And they were smaller companies. And that was my choice to be like, look, you're helping me. I want to help you. And we're going to work together in this way. And then with a couple of them, it was exchange for yarn and a little bit of money, like I took it as a case by case basis. Then there was a larger company that wanted to pay me in yarn, and they were putting my pattern in their newsletter. And so it was exposure. And I say exposure because that's usually a term that people are like, oh, well, crafters are always wanting to pay with exposure. But I think that there's some value in some exposure. You have to decide what works for you. I didn't do it for many, but for the few that I wanted to, I did. So for the most part now, I don't work for yarn anymore. I don't need any more yarn. So I mean, I need that.
You've got plenty back there.
I got plenty. But I definitely have had those times. Now I'm going to change this up. And if you are a contractor or a tester, those are two different things as well. You got to kind of take a step back, and not all designers have a ton of money to be able to pay for testers to test their stuff. And then the designers who are paying for contractors, it's two different things. There's testers and contractors. You have to negotiate that, I think, with each designer individually. That's the designer being a business person and you being a business person. And you guys have to communicate of, hey, Marie, I need this sweater made. I'm going to send you the yarn. Here's the due date. And I'm going to pay you $125 to make it. Do those terms, does that work for you? You can say, okay, so what's the weight of the yarn? What size am I making? Okay, I have 3 weeks to make it. Do you think I can make that deadline? Okay, are you paying for shipping or am I paying for shipping? Okay, I'm paying for shipping. Okay, does that work? You know what? Yeah, I can make that work. Like I can, maybe it'll only take me a week and a half. So even though it's 3 weeks, I could do that in a week and a half. You have to think about those things. I think that's an individual decision you have to make.
And you also have to think about right now. Like if somebody came to me today and said that, I'd say 3 weeks. What are you, crazy? The holidays, and I'm up to my neck in grading, and I can't do that, and traveling, whatever. But maybe at another time of year, I'd say, oh, that sounds fine. And so I think, as a business person, you just have to constantly negotiate it. And to go back to your point about exposure, I don't, of course, when I started out, like everyone, people would say, oh, and we'll promote you. And that's great. And then I look, now I'm much more savvy about that. So I still sometimes do things for exposure, but what is exposure? Right? Yes. What is the exposure? And it has to be very clear what the exposure is, right?
Yes.
So if I have more Facebook followers than you sharing it on your Facebook page is not exposure for me. Right. So when just because they're a yarn company and you're a designer doesn't mean that you have less followers, doesn't mean you have smaller reach. You have to really look at it. And also, is it exactly are they going to do? Right. So I work with this company. I won't name them. I love them, but they're not very strong with social media. So, when I'm not getting paid and they're providing me with products, I know that I'm not really going to get a big boost. It's just they're not good at it. It's not that they don't try. It's just not their area of expertise. And so I have to say, is this product worth enough to me that I'm saving on my own business because it's self-published? So I still own the rights. I'm getting the ad dollars, whatever. Then it might make sense. But again, you have to really look at each individual thing. And I would get stuff in writing too. Like, what
Oh,
specific are you
yes.
going to do with exposure? How many times are you posting it? Is it going on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest? Is it going in your newsletter? How many subscribers do you have? All those kind of things that people don't think to ask, because they're just like, oh, wow, this big company said they're going to give me exposure, and they might tweet it once and that's it. And then you get no exposure.
Right. Right. A very good point. Yeah, I'm very selective on the exposure aspect of things. With the testers, because I wanted to jump to that since I brought it up real quick. I know that with myself, I usually don't pay my testers, but I will try and I will sometimes give them, like, I'll give them free, like any pattern they want of mine. I will, more often than not, I will send them to yarn to make something with, especially if it's like, maybe they're making a, okay, so here's one round. I have some people who right now are making some shawls that they have tested and they liked it. So I'm like, if I send you yarn to make another shawl, but you keep the shawl, you get to keep the shawl, you get to keep everything. I just want to take pictures of it. I'll send it back to you. You know, would you be willing to do that? You know, so it's like, there's all sorts of different aspects of what you can do. It all depends on what business you want to run and how you want to run it. And for those of you who don't realize that there are testers out there and contractors, there are test knitters and crocheters. There are contract testers or contract knitters and crocheters. That is an actual job you can do. Yeah. You won't make a ton of money. I mean, let's just be honest. You're not going to get paid $500 to make something. Just no. But it's something, if you're already making stuff and you're like, you know what, I'd like to make a little extra money on the side to do this, that's something you can do. And more often than not, you're going to make more money than you do at like a craft fair. Just throwing that out there. Which is a whole nother ball of beans, like absolutely wax, I guess, jar of worms, but all of those things. You mentioned something that I definitely want to bring up and talk about, because especially with you being a crochet blogger, I think it's important, because I don't think a lot of people realize how crochet bloggers get paid when they put those free patterns on their websites. I know way back when I understood it, but I didn't understand how much of an impact it could really have on your business. And I'm going to preface all this with, when you go into business, no matter what it is, for all of you out there, you want to make sure that you don't have all your eggs in one basket. You want to make sure you're diversified. So true. In the many different ways you bring in income. So that way, when one aspect is down, another one can take its place and you aren't going to fluctuate so much. Trust me, I have been there. Okay. So let's talk about the free patterns, because the free patterns, you and I both know, more so on the knitter side, they get bad raps. Yeah. It's like they're giving away stuff. They're not getting money. They're devaluing, but they don't understand. They don't understand.
Yeah. So
I'll let you talk.
Yeah. I mean, I'll start by saying most of the people I know whose business model predominantly uses free patterns, most of those people make more money than most of the people I know who predominantly sell their independently published patterns like this as PDFs, right? Yep. So I think that the idea that you can't make money from that doesn't make any sense. But to go back, I think of any business you know in the world. There's no business that just has one product that they sell and that's it. So if you think about Apple, you know, they have the phones, they have the computers, they have, you know, whatever else that they sell. They have services like iTunes. Just like you said, Marley, they're diversifying, because they know if the phone sales go down, they could go out of business if they only had phones. And so designers have to be the same way. So, or, you know, crochet business people or knitting business people. So for me, how my website makes money is a couple of different ways. One is through advertising. So when you come onto my site, you're going to see ads. And so, you know, when people click on those ads, I earn some money from that. I also do what's called affiliate marketing. So as an example, I would say I made this with Red Heart yarn, this particular Red Heart yarn. And then Red Heart has, you know, like in the back end and computer world, they give me a special link so that when somebody clicks on that link and then they say, wow, this Red Heart yarn is beautiful, let me buy some, I'll get a small percentage of that sale. Okay. And it doesn't charge the consumer any extra money, but I might get 4%, 10%, 20%. It really depends on the brand. Okay?
So let's say that one more time. It does not charge the consumer any extra money. But it's like, hey, Marie told me about this really great yarn. I want to make sure she gets a tip for it.
Exactly. Because from Red Heart's point of view, if I didn't send the person there, that's a person that might not have bought Red Heart yarn. Exactly. Maybe they would have bought Lion Brand instead, right? So So that's another way. That's affiliate sales. And then from time to time, I'll do sponsored posts. So that's when a company will say, here's a set amount of money. I want you to post about such and such thing. And that has to fit with, my brand. There are bloggers that do sponsored posts on everything and it's all over the map. I don't really do that. It has to be a project that makes sense for me and my readers. But that's another way. So you could even still have the free project on your blog, but the company could say, I'm going to give you X dollars if you post it. Usually when you do that, they are specific about the timelines. They usually are going to specify which of their products. So you can't just pick any red heart yarn. Let's say it would have to be a specific yarn that they're trying to promote at that moment. They would probably have input on what's the project that you're going to be posting and things like that. And so for me, those are the main ways that I make money off my blog. I also sell ad-free PDFs. So for all of my, or most of my patterns that are free, there's a easy to print version that somebody can buy for, $2 or something. And so I make money from that also.
That's
I
funny.
know other
Llama
designers
Llama,
that have other ways too for
Llama
making
Llama,
money off their blog.
Llama Llama Grandmama, just as you were saying that, she says, for myself, if there's a free pattern on the blog, but the blogger offers a paid PDF, she typically will purchase the paid PDF because she doesn't want all the fluff. And I would say that's exactly why they're there.
Yeah.
I just wanted, because I thought it was great. As soon as you said it, she said it.
Yeah. People pay for convenience, and it's easy to print, and not everybody knows how to print something off the internet. And, other people, it's more convenient. They can look at it when they're offline, whatever the issues are. So I think, for me, that's how I make money off my blog. And other bloggers have other different ways that they make money also directly through their blog. But those are usually kind of the main ways, which is some type of, digital product that people can buy, advertising, sponsorship, and affiliate sales.
So I just want to recap that a little bit. Every time you go and visit your favorite blogger's website, every time you come to YouTube and go to my page, every time you're on their site, you find a pattern you like, and maybe at the bottom it says, you might also like this, and you click that and you go to that page. Every time you go to a different page, we get ad revenue for you looking at pages. Then if there's an actual ad that you like, don't just go click ads. Don't click all the ads and be like, oh, I'm going to help them out. No, that hurts us.
Yeah, but if there's then they think we're scamming.
Yeah, it's not good. But say that you were looking, for example, I was looking at the new Dyson Airwrap thing. It's like $550, right? I don't know if I'm going to get it yet or not, because I'm like, Merry Christmas to me, or am I like, oh my God, that's crazy. But maybe I'm on somebody's website and I see an ad pop up for it, because the cookies and everything. And I'm like, you know what? I am going to buy that. And I click on that ad and I buy it, and I got there from this other person's website. Then they get a little kick from that. Does that make sense? So if there are people that you love their patterns, you love the information they're putting out there, you love their content, you are literally supporting them by going to their website, by sharing their website with your friends on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on the many different platforms that are available. Every time, because you didn't talk about YouTube, when you come to YouTube and you watch a video and you watch the entire video, maybe you let the whole thing run so you can watch it. Like I make money from that. When you leave a comment on YouTube, I make money from that. Like YouTube likes that. So you are supporting me to be able to provide the free content here on YouTube simply by hitting subscribe, leaving that comment, smashing that like button, all of those things. Those are important. There's a reason why all the YouTubers want you to do this, because that allows us to actually make money for what we're doing. This is our job, right? So I think it's important for you guys as consumers to understand that's how it works. Now, for those of you who are wanting to be in the craft industry, that's how it works.
Yeah.
Get a blog, start with AdSense on your website, and, start putting some content out there and start making some revenue through that.
And the thing that, the other thing you said about, people liking and subscribing and sharing it on social media, that's the other thing. You can't really get sponsored posts unless unless the company feels like this is not just sitting on your blog. So they do, even if necessarily I don't get paid for every Instagram follower I have, for example, but they're going to go and say, oh, you only have this many followers on Instagram? I don't know if I want to pay you for that sponsored post because we're really trying to promote it on Instagram. So anytime there's a designer that you like and you can follow them or share their work or do whatever it is, all of that is helping them, like you said, Marley, to provide the pre-content. Because I put out a free pattern every week, mostly throughout the year. I mean, this year I think I did 60 something. So there was like, some weeks where I didn't put one and the next week I did 2 or something like that. But it's that's a lot of work. And so, I have to be compensated for that. Or next year it'll be, well, instead of, having a blog, why don't I just teach more classes at the college, and get paid extra for that? So I think, a lot of people start in this industry and they're so excited. And every year, I know, it, Marley, people just like drop like flies. You'll say, hey, whatever happened to so-and-so? And you'll look and their website hasn't been updated in 2 years. Their last design is from 2014. Yeah. And they're super talented and they're creative, but they just get burnt out because, the money's not coming in. People aren't supporting them. So it's tough.
Yep. All of that. And, I'm sitting in the chat room telling people that the best way you guys can help us and make sure that, we're able to stay in the business, stay in the biz, share our links, share our patterns, pin them on Pinterest. The more, things get seen on Pinterest and it drives traffic back to us. When you learn on YouTube, or maybe there's a technique or tutorial you've seen on somebody's website and you're in a Facebook group and somebody says, hey, where do you like to go get your free crochet patterns from? Underground Crafter, you should check her out. Don't be shy about that. Spread the word. I think more often than not, we're too quick to say a negative thing about something than a positive. And so you can really help us all out. Having said that, for those of you who are new and want to be designers, it's important that you don't go out there and spam people. That's the tricky thing is you've got to make sure, you've got to have, I want to say you want to have your fans, your followers share that information. You have to be careful about not oversharing and pumping yourself up, even though that's part of what you have to do. Like, it's hard, you guys. It's hard to not, it's hard for me to be part of a group on Facebook and somebody will ask a question. I know I have a video for it, but if I just constantly am only just saying, oh, I have a video for that and clicking it, they could say, well, you're constantly just self-promoting. But I'm like, but if I was anybody else, like I know that there's a video for that. So I'm just sharing. I'm not saying, hey, go check this out. Like, it's like, I'm trying to answer and be helpful. But it's hard because sometimes
it's a tough line.
Yeah, it's very
difficult. And a lot of groups, especially on Facebook, they're not really supportive of designers, which is fine. I mean, every group should be able to set its own rules. So I'm cool with that. If you feel like I'm posting too much of my own stuff, give me the boot. And I totally understand, because if I'm in a group and it's not supposed to be promotional and somebody's promoting, I'm going to be like, give them the boot, So every moderator has the right to do that, of course. But to kind of go back to your point, in my other book, which I recently came out with in the fall, it's Design It, Promote It, Sell It, Online Marketing for Your Crochet Knit Patterns. I do talk about that because a lot of young designers struggle with that. They over promote themselves or they promote the same things over and over because unlike you and me that have been doing this for years, they don't have a big catalog. So they don't have 300, 500 patterns that they could even show, 2 different ones a week and nobody would realize that it was them. They have 2 patterns and they show the same one every 2 days or something. And people are like, oh, I'm so done with that person because they're seeing the same image, they feel like you're spamming them, So it's a tough line to walk, especially when you're starting. Right. And, there's going to be times where you upset somebody and, you can just say, oh, okay, I learned something. I know now to follow the group rules or pay more attention, or not to be in this type of group because that's not the way I want to engage with people or whatever it is. But it's definitely a learning curve.
I love it. There are so many more questions in the chat room, Marie, but this is what I'm thinking. Okay. I think you need to come back. I think we need to make like, I'm like, we should make this a series. It could be like, you want to do this? We're going to talk about being a tester today and like, just dive in. Like, people, they are loving this. They're loving the information. They want so much more. I want to make sure they know that they can get your books to, I honestly get the books. collect the questions that you have. Let's have Marie back on the show. Let's ask her all the things. And I love this, being able to have the dialogue back and forth, because even though you and I have been in the business the same amount of time, we have completely different experiences.
Right. Because your business model and mine are totally different.
Exactly,
so we have a really different perspective. Yeah.
And I think that's so important too, for people to understand that what works for me might not work for you, and what works for her might not work for you. You might have a completely different style, and that's okay. And that's what's so important and great about this industry is there are so many different ways to go about creating a career that it's all out there and available to you. So Marie, would you come? Marie, I'm asking you on a date.
Oh, the pressure's on.
I know. This would actually be like our third date, because you've been on before.
I know, but it got obliterated, sadly. Yeah. I'm sure that would be great. Yeah.
I would love that. I think people would really love that too. Like they think you're fantastic. So if they want your wonderful books, where would they go to find them?
I mean, both of them are available on Amazon, so that's probably pretty easy for people. You can go to undergroundcrafter.com. That's my main website, and it has links to both books on, I think, on my About page. And you can also Google the titles. I mean, there's a ton of different ways, but I would say those are probably the main ways to get them.
It's fantastic. I seriously, I love talking to you. I always learn so much, and I love your sense of humor. I just think you're fabulous, and everybody else does too. So this is good. This is a really great show.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Marley. It's great to be on. I'm so glad our technology didn't explode and I didn't just look at your mouth moving with no words coming out. All of this is much better than last time. So
it really is so great. Thank you. And then we'll get you coming back. All right, guys. So that's it for today's show. Hopefully you've learned quite a bit, or at least your interest has been piqued and you are like, maybe I could do this. I should learn more. Check out Marie's books, Design It, Promote It, Sell It, Online Marketing for your crochet and knit patterns, and then make money teaching your crochet, launch your business, increase your side income, and reach more students. I'm definitely going to have Marie back on the show to talk about all of the things that are involved in the crochet and knitting industry, because it seems like many of you are interested in this, which is fantastic. So if this podcast has been helpful to you, don't be shy. Share it out there in all of those different groups that you're interested in. Maybe next time we can tackle like craft fairs and stuff, like pricing and how do you set up a booth? People don't know that. How much money should you bring? How do you use Square? Do you use PayPal? What do you do? There's so many questions we could hit. So this is good. This is really good. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Yarn Thing podcast. Marie, thank you. I love you so much. And we'll talk to you in January. Later. Yes. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.